Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on the video. Lisa had a way of making me feel small without ever raising her voice. She never had to yell or curse. She didn't throw things or slam doors. No, her cruelty was more refined, more calculated. Every insult was disguised as a joke, every criticism delivered with a sugar-sweet smile, every put-down camouflaged under the pretense of helping me be better. It hadn't always been this way. When we first met, Lisa had been charming, driven, confident, everything I thought I wanted in a partner. She made me feel like I was the only person in the world who truly mattered to her. But somewhere along the way, that admiration had turned into something else, something sharper. It started small, little sighs when I spoke, the subtle way her eyes glazed over whenever I talked about my interests, how she would correct me in front of others, always with a patronizing tilt of her head, like she was gently guiding a child who just didn't know better. And then, one day I realized something. Lisa didn't respect me. She tolerated me. It hit me hardest at family gatherings. Lisa had a habit of putting on a show whenever we were in public, especially in front of people she wanted to impress. Her career was everything to her, and she played the corporate world like a chess game. If tearing me down made her look better, well, that was just another move in her strategy. The worst moment came at Thanksgiving. We were at her parents' house, the dining room packed with relatives, the table covered in enough food to feed an army. Wine was flowing, conversations overlapped, and I had actually started enjoying myself until Lisa decided I needed to be put in my place. Her cousin, a lawyer, had just finished talking about a major case he won. Lisa turned to him, smiling in admiration. "That's incredible, Greg. Honestly, I wish some people had that kind of drive." The table chuckled. I felt my stomach drop. Greg smirked. "Oh yeah." He looked at me, clearly amused. "You taking it easy these days, Mark?" Lisa leaned in, her hand resting lightly on my arm like she was about to say something sweet. "Oh, Mark has always been about comfort. He's just not built for risk." The laughter that followed was polite, restrained. But I heard it. I felt it. I forced a smile, gripping my fork a little too tightly. "I'm plenty ambitious," I said, keeping my tone light. "I just don't feel the need to perform for people to prove it." Lisa's smile didn't falter, but I saw something flicker in her eyes, annoyance. She patted my hand like I was a child. "Oh, honey, that's adorable." More laughter. Something inside me cracked. For years, I had let moments like this slide. I had told myself that Lisa didn't mean it, that she was just joking, that maybe I was being too sensitive. But this wasn't a joke. Lisa meant every word. Later that night, as we were cleaning up in the kitchen, I finally spoke up. "Why do you do that?" Lisa glanced at me, rinsing off a plate. "Do what?" "Make me look like a joke in front of your family." She sighed, shaking her head. "Mark, you're overthinking it." "No, I'm not." I folded my arms. "You act like I'm just some placeholder in your life. Like I'm just there." Lisa set the plate down and turned to me, her expression one of pure exasperation. "Mark, don't be so dramatic. It was just banter." "No, it wasn't," I said, my voice firmer than usual. "It was belittling, and you knew exactly what you were doing." Lisa scoffed, drying her hands. "Oh my God, do you want me to apologize for having a sense of humor?" I stared at her, feeling something shift inside me. This wasn't going to change. Lisa wasn't going to change. For years, I had convinced myself that if I just waited long enough, if I proved myself enough, if I loved her enough, she would see me differently. She would respect me. But she wouldn't, because Lisa liked things this way. She liked feeling superior. She liked knowing that no matter how successful I was, no matter how much I contributed to our life, she would always be the one with the final word. And suddenly I was just tired. Tired of justifying her behavior. Tired of making excuses. Tired of waiting for something that would never come. I exhaled, stepping back. "You know what, Lisa?" She raised an eyebrow. "What?" I shook my head, laughing under my breath. "Nothing." Lisa smirked, clearly thinking she had won whatever battle she thought we were having. She turned back to the sink, humming under her breath, completely unaware of what had just happened. She didn't realize that for the first time in our marriage, I was no longer looking for ways to fix things. I was looking for a way out. And soon, she would find out just how much power I had when I stopped playing the fool. Lisa's words had always been sharp, but that Thanksgiving was the first time I truly felt the cut. The laughter at the table, the way she looked at me like I was a disappointment she had to tolerate, it stuck with me long after the night had ended. I told myself I was overreacting. That it was just Lisa being Lisa. That maybe I was being too sensitive like she always claimed. But deep down, I knew better. Then came a night with our friends. Lisa had planned a dinner party, inviting a few couples from her work, people I barely knew, but one she seemed determined to impress. I had agreed, thinking it would be a simple, casual evening. I should have known better. We were halfway through dinner when the conversation turned to careers. One of the guys, Nick, was talking about a big promotion he had just secured. Lisa smiled at him, her voice full of admiration. "That's incredible, Nick. Honestly, I wish some people had that kind of drive." She didn't look at me, but she didn't have to. The room fell silent for a split second before someone laughed nervously. I set my drink down. "What's that supposed to mean?" Lisa finally turned toward me, her expression amused. "Oh, come on, Mark. Don't act like I'm saying anything untrue. You're comfortable. You're content." She said the word like it was an insult. I forced a smile, feeling the eyes on me. "Yeah, I am comfortable. I have a good job. I pay our bills, and I'm not chasing titles just to impress strangers at a dinner table." Lisa's smile faltered for a split second, but she recovered quickly. "Of course, honey. But let's be honest, you've never been the ambitious one in this relationship." This time, there was no laughter, just a heavy silence. I leaned forward, my voice calm. "And yet, my lack of ambition is what makes your life possible, isn't it? I handle the things you don't have time for. I make sure our home actually runs while you're off chasing deals. You might bring in the flashy contracts, but don't pretend I don't keep the foundation solid." Lisa's expression hardened. "That's not what I meant." I shrugged. "Seemed like exactly what you meant." Nick cleared his throat. So, about that promotion, the conversation shifted, but Lisa didn't look at me for the rest of the night. When the guests finally left, she shut the door harder than necessary and turned to me, her arms crossed. "What the hell was that?" I met her gaze, unbothered. "You tell me." She scoffed. "Oh my God, Mark. You embarrassed me." I let out a short laugh. "Did I? Or did I finally stop letting you embarrass me?" She stared at me, her jaw tight, like she was trying to figure out who this version of me was, this version that didn't just take the hits and stay quiet. After a long pause, she shook her head. "You're being ridiculous." I exhaled, suddenly exhausted. "Lisa, do you even respect me?" Her lips parted slightly, but she hesitated. And in that hesitation, I had my answer. She didn't. She never had. I walked past her, heading to the bedroom. For the first time, I wasn't going to be the one trying to fix things. Lisa could sit in the mess she made. Lisa barely spoke to me the next morning. Normally, she would make some passive-aggressive comment over coffee, a reminder that she was still winning whatever silent argument we were having. But today, she just got ready for work, her movements stiff, her expression unreadable. Good. For years, she had held all the power in our relationship. I had let her, believing that keeping the peace was more important than winning arguments. But last night had shifted something. I had seen for the first time what happened when I didn't immediately fold. She didn't know how to handle it. I went about my day, tried to focus on work, but something in the back of my mind wouldn't let me rest. It wasn't just the way Lisa had treated me at dinner. It was a feeling, a gnawing certainty that there was more going on than she was letting on. And then it happened. I was cleaning the house that evening when I found it. Lisa had always been territorial about her things. Her work bag, her laptop, even her phone. She never left them unlocked or unattended. But today she had been in such a rush that she had forgotten to put her work bag in the closet like she usually did. It sat by the couch, the zipper slightly open. I knew it was wrong, knew that if I was wrong about this, I would have to live with the guilt. But something inside me was screaming that I wasn't wrong. I reached into the bag, my fingers brushing against papers, receipts, her planner. And then something smooth. A small velvet box. My heart pounded as I pulled it out. It was a jewelry box. Slowly, I opened it. Inside was a sleek, expensive-looking watch. Not the kind Lisa would ever wear. No, this was a man's watch. Silver, minimalist, ridiculously expensive. My stomach tightened. I pulled out my phone and searched the brand, scrolling through prices. For $1,000. Lisa wasn't the type to buy expensive gifts for no reason. She wasn't the type to buy me expensive gifts at all. And she definitely wasn't the type to spend $4,000 on something unless it meant something. I swallowed hard, setting the box on the table. My mind raced, piecing things together. Lisa had been working late more often. She had been traveling more. She had been distant, more impatient, as if being around me was a chore. She had been crueler, more reckless with her words, like she was justifying something. I sat down, running a hand through my hair. I wasn't stupid. I knew what this meant. I knew, deep down, that I had just found proof that Lisa wasn't just disrespecting me. She was cheating on me, but I needed more than a gut feeling. I needed proof. I put the watch back, making sure everything was exactly as I'd found it. If Lisa thought I was still clueless, she wouldn't cover her tracks. I would wait. I would watch. And when the moment was right, I would end this on my terms. Lisa had no idea I knew. That was my advantage. I spent the next few days watching her closely, memorizing her patterns, noting the way she acted when she thought I wasn't paying attention. She was distracted, her phone constantly in her hand, her smiles too quick, too rehearsed. She was texting someone who made her light up in a way she hadn't with me in a long time. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask questions. Instead, I laid the groundwork. First, I checked her shared finances. Lisa had her own account, but we still had a joint one for bills. She was careful, but not that careful. I found several charges to a luxury hotel in Denver, buried among her business expenses, each one listed as a client entertainment cost. Then, I checked her phone records. She had a number she called regularly, one that wasn't labeled. And the calls were long, sometimes over an hour. Always late at night, after I had gone to bed. And then, the final piece. I had access to Lisa's work laptop. She always kept it locked, but she used the same password for everything. I knew it, of course. She had told me years ago, never thinking I'd use it. I logged in and went straight to her emails. There it was. A message thread with a man named Steve Carter. Lisa, same sweet as last time? Steve, of course. You always have the best ideas. Lisa, just make sure we're careful. Last thing I need is Mark getting suspicious. My hands clenched into fists. I scrolled back, reading more. It had been going on for months. Private dinner meetings, late-night hotel stays, inside jokes. Lisa hadn't just cheated. She had built an entire relationship behind my back. I closed the laptop carefully. I wasn't angry, not in the way I would have been before. This wasn't about rage. It wasn't about screaming at Lisa or demanding answers. It was about justice. I took my time planning it. Lisa had a company-wide Zoom meeting coming up. A big one. She had been stressing over it for weeks, making sure every detail was perfect. Her boss, her team, her clients, they'd all be on the call, watching as she presented. It was the perfect stage. I accessed her work laptop again the night before the meeting, slipping in a small program I had written myself, something simple, something that would allow me to override her screen at just the right moment. The next day, Lisa was rushing around the house, getting ready. You sure you don't want to grab lunch later? I asked, keeping my tone light. She barely looked at me. Can't. Big meeting. I smiled. Good luck. She didn't even respond. I waited until I heard her log in. I knew exactly how long she would take to introduce herself, to start her presentation. And then I struck. I activated the program. Lisa's screen flickered. And then, instead of her slides, the screen filled with a photo. Lisa in a hotel bed, still wearing her company badge, looking right into the camera with a smug little smile. Silence. Then gasps. Lisa, someone said, confused. Lisa, what is that? Lisa's entire body locked up. I don't. Her boss's voice cut in, sharp and cold. Lisa, is this a joke? I leaned against the kitchen counter, listening as chaos erupted on the other end of the call. Then I walked into her office, standing just behind her chair. Lisa turned, her face pale, her hands shaking. Mark, I smiled. Lisa's great at networking. just not the kind the company pays for. And with that, I closed her laptop. Lisa lost her job, her reputation, and her marriage before she even had a chance to log out. And I had never felt stronger. Lisa had no idea I knew. That was my advantage. I spent the next few days watching her closely, memorizing her patterns, noting the way she acted when she thought I wasn't paying attention. She was distracted, her phone constantly in her hand, her smiles too quick, too rehearsed. She was texting someone who made her light up in a way she hadn't with me in a long time. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask questions. Instead, I laid the groundwork. First, I checked her shared finances. Lisa had her own account, but we still had a joint one for bills. She was careful, but not that careful. I found several charges to a luxury hotel in Denver, buried among her business expenses, each one listed as a client entertainment cost. Then, I checked her phone records. She had a number she called regularly, one that wasn't labeled. And the calls were long, sometimes over an hour. Always late at night, after I had gone to bed. And then, the final piece. I had access to Lisa's work laptop. She always kept it locked, but she used the same password for everything. I knew it, of course. She had told me years ago, never thinking I'd use it. I logged in and went straight to her emails. There it was. A message thread with a man named Steve Carter. Lisa, same sweet as last time? Steve, of course. You always have the best ideas. Lisa, just make sure we're careful. Last thing I need is Mark getting suspicious. My hands clenched into fists. I scrolled back, reading more. It had been going on for months. Private dinner meetings, late-night hotel stays, inside jokes. Lisa hadn't just cheated. She had built an entire relationship behind my back. I closed the laptop carefully. I wasn't angry, not in the way I would have been before. This wasn't about rage. It wasn't about screaming at Lisa or demanding answers. It was about justice. I took my time planning it. Lisa had a company-wide Zoom meeting coming up, a big one. She had been stressing over it for weeks, making sure every detail was perfect. Her boss, her team, her clients, they'd all be on the call, watching as she presented. It was the perfect stage. I accessed her work laptop again the night before the meeting, slipping in a small program I had written myself, something simple, something that would allow me to override her screen at just the right moment. The next day, Lisa was rushing around the house, getting ready. You sure you don't want to grab lunch later? I asked, keeping my tone light. She barely looked at me. Can't. Big meeting. I smiled. Good luck. She didn't even respond. I waited until I heard her log in. I knew exactly how long she would take to introduce herself, to start her presentation. And then I struck. I activated the program. Lisa's screen flickered. And then, instead of her slides, the screen filled with the photo. Lisa in a hotel bed, still wearing her company badge, looking right into the camera with a smug little smile. Silence. Then gasps. Lisa, someone said, confused. Lisa, what is that? Lisa's entire body locked up. I don't. Her boss's voice cut in sharp and cold. Lisa, is this a joke? I leaned against the kitchen counter, listening as chaos erupted on the other end of the call. Then, I walked in her office, standing just behind her chair. Lisa turned, her face pale, her hands shaking. Mark, I smiled. Lisa's great at networking, just not the kind the company pays for. And with that, I closed her laptop. Lisa lost her job, her reputation, and her marriage before she even had a chance to log out. And I had never felt stronger. Lisa stood there, gripping her phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her breaths were uneven, her chest rising and falling as she tried to process what had just happened. I watched her, calm, collected, waiting for her next move. She let out a shaky laugh, humorless, forced. You think this is over? I tilted my head, amused. Lisa, it's only just beginning. She scoffed, shoving a hand through her hair, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. I don't know what kind of game you think you're playing, but you just made the biggest mistake of your life. I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. Funny, I was about to say the same thing to you. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. I could tell she was terrified to look. I waited. She finally glanced down, and whatever she saw drained the last bit of color from her face. I smirked. Bad news. She shot me a glare, so sharp I thought she might actually lunge at me. Instead, she let out a harsh breath and started grabbing her things. I need to fix this. I need to go to the office and explain. I raised an eyebrow. Explain what exactly? That you just accidentally ended up in a hotel bed with Steve? That was a business strategy? She yanked her laptop cord out of the wall. No one is going to believe you over me. I laughed. Lisa, you don't get it, do you? This isn't about me. Your boss isn't mad because I exposed you. He's mad because you embarrassed him. Her hands trembled slightly, but she clenched her jaw. I'll fix it. I stepped closer, lower my voice. No, you won't. Because people like you don't get second chances after something like this. You built your career on perception, on making yourself look like the perfect professional. And now, you're the office scandal. She shook her head, refusing to believe it. I leaned in slightly. By the way, did Steve's wife see the picture yet? Lisa's entire body went rigid. I grinned. Oh, you didn't think of that, did you? She inhaled sharply, stepping back like she'd been struck. Good. Let that sink in. She had destroyed her marriage, her job, and someone else's family all in one stupid, selfish move. And now she was out of time. Lisa didn't say another word. She grabbed her keys and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I let out a slow breath, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. I sat down at the kitchen table, letting the silence settle around me. No Lisa, no tensión. No constant pressure to measure up to her impossible expectations. Just peace. I poured myself a drink and took a slow sip, staring at the empty chair across from me. For years, I had fought to keep this marriage alive. I had swallowed my pride, ignored the signs, made excuses for Lisa's cruelty. Not anymore. I was done. Lisa was on her way to watch her entire world collapse. And I had never felt more free. Lisa was unraveling. I could see in the way she moved, the way her hands clenched around her phone, the way she barely met my eyes anymore. Her world was collapsing, and for once, there was no one left to save her. After she stormed out of the house, I let her go without a word. I had no interest in stopping her. Let her run to the office, let her beg and plead. It wouldn't change a damn thing. The damage was done, and I was just getting started. I called Jacob, my lawyer, later that afternoon. He had been handling my divorce paperwork since the moment I found out about Lisa and Steve, and now it was time to move forward. She's losing her job today, I told him. She's going to try to fight it, but it won't matter. Jacob chuckled. Good. That'll make the divorce even easier. She won't have the financial upper hand. That's what I'm counting on. All right, Jacob said. I'll file everything first thing tomorrow. Full separation of assets. No spousal support. Given the evidence we have, she won't have a leg to stand on. I exhaled. Make sure she gets served at home. Jacob paused, then let out a low whistle. Cole, man, I love it. This isn't about revenge, I said, though even I wasn't sure if that was entirely true. This is about making sure she understands she doesn't get to win this time. Lisa had spent years making sure I felt small, insignificant. She had treated me like a placeholder, someone to come home to when she needed stability, but not someone who actually mattered. Well, now she would see just how replaceable she was. Lisa came home late that night. She looked exhausted, her eyes rimmed red, her makeup smudged. She stood in the doorway, clutching her bag like it was the only thing holding her together. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping a drink, watching her. She inhaled sharply. They fired me. I raised an eyebrow. Shocking. Her jaw tightened. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I leaned back, swirling the liquid in my glass. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. Lisa's whole body tensed. Do you know I lost today? She snapped. Do you have any idea what it's like to have everything ripped from you? I tilted my head. Actually, I do. That's what you've been doing to me for years. She flinched, just slightly. I set my glass down, standing up slowly. Lisa, you built your whole career on power plays, on being the smartest person in the room, the one with all the leverage. You chose to take that risk with Steve. You thought you'd never get caught. She swallowed hard, her lips pressing into a thin line. I made a mistake. I chuckled. No, Lisa. A mistake is forgetting to send an email. This This was a choice. She ran a hand through her hair, frustration radiating off her. So what now? I smirked. Now? You get served. Her eyes widened as I reached into the drawer and pulled out the divorce papers. I dropped them onto the counter between us, watching as the realization dawned on her. She started, but her voice cracked. Already filed, I said calmly. You'll get the official notice in the morning. Lisa's breathing turned shallow, her fingers gripping the edge of the counter. You planned this, she whispered. I nodded. Of course I did. You taught me how to be ruthless, Lisa. I was just a good student. For the first time, she had no comeback. No sharp words, no calculated manipulation. She was beaten. I picked up my drink, walking past her toward the living room. You should start packing, I said over my shoulder. I already had the accounts separated. Since you like networking so much, I'm sure you'll land on your feet. Lisa didn't move. She didn't speak. She just stood there, staring down at the divorce papers like they were the final nail in her coffin. And maybe they were. I didn't care. I was finally free. Lisa didn't sign the divorce papers that night. She just stood there, staring at them like she could will them out of existence. I didn't press her. She could sit with the reality of it for as long as she wanted. It wouldn't change a thing. The process had already started, and the outcome was inevitable. I slept soundly that night for the first time in years. No tension, no weight pressing on my chest, no wondering what fresh insult Lisa would throw at me the next day. When I woke up, she was gone. She didn't come home that night either, or the night after that. I could guess where she was. Maybe at a hotel, maybe begging some old connection to help her find a way back into the career she had destroyed. Maybe even with Steve, though I doubted his wife would let him keep up his little office romance now that everything was out in the open. I didn't care. The next few days passed in quiet, peaceful solitude. I started rediscovering parts of myself that had been buried under years of Lisa's criticism. I went back to the gym, something I hadn't done in years because Lisa always made snide remarks about wasting time on pointless hobbies. I spent hours reconnecting with friends, real friends, not the ones Lisa had approved of because they made her look good at corporate events. Most importantly, I threw myself into my work. Lisa had spent years belittling what I did, acting like her career was the only one that mattered, like I was just coasting through life while she built something important. But now, without her constant negativity in my ear, I could see the truth. I was damn good at what I did. And now, I had the freedom to expand. I met with Jason, an old friend who ran a cybersecurity firm, and over a few drinks, he made me an offer. I've been needing someone like you, Mark, he said. Someone sharp, someone who actually understands how to protect clients from corporate-level threats. Join me, not just as an employee, as a partner. A month ago, I would have hesitated. I would have thought about what Lisa would say, whether she'd roll her eyes, whether she'd tell me it was too risky, that I should just stick with my comfortable job. But Lisa wasn't here anymore, and she would never get a say in my life again. I shook Jason's hand. I'm in. The divorce was finalized a few weeks later. Lisa never fought it. Maybe she thought she still had a chance to turn things around, or maybe she finally realized she had already lost. Either way, when I walked out of that courthouse, I was a free man. Lisa, on the other hand, wasn't doing so well. Word had spread fast about what happened, not just in her company, but in the entire industry. Nobody wanted to hire someone whose name was tied to an HR scandal, especially when it involved expense fraud, workplace affairs, and a public humiliation on a company-wide call. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she had been living in a cheap rental, barely scraping by. I didn't feel bad for her. Lisa had spent years tearing me down, making me feel like I was less valuable, less interesting, less worthy. She had thought I would never leave, never stand up for myself. She was wrong. And now I had everything I needed to rebuild my life better than before. Lisa's downfall was slow, painful, and completely self-inflicted. I didn't have to lift another finger. She had done all the damage herself. I heard bits and pieces through mutual acquaintances. She had tried to land another job in the same industry, but her name was toxic. The moment anyone did background check, the whispers would start. No one wanted to take on the risk of hiring someone tied to a workplace scandal, especially not at her previous level of seniority. At first, she tried to maintain the illusion that she was fine. She still posted online, pretending she was taking a well-deserved break and exploring new opportunities. But her updates became less frequent, her once polished image starting to crack. Then, I found out Steve's wife had left him. A mutual friend told me over drinks one night. Yeah, she took the kids in the house. Guess she didn't feel like staying married to a guy who got exposed in front of an entire company. I smirked, taking a sip of my drink. Karma works fast. Steve had lost everything, and Lisa? She was barely holding on. Meanwhile, my life was moving forward in ways I hadn't imagined. My partnership with Jason was taking off. The cybersecurity firm was growing fast, landing bigger contracts, expanding into new markets. For the first time in years, I actually loved what I was doing. I felt challenged, respected, valued, not just in my work, but in every aspect of my life. I had reconnected with old friends, traveled just because I could, and most importantly, I had started enjoying my own company again. No more second-guessing myself. No more walking on eggshells. No more shrinking into the background just to keep someone else comfortable. Then, one day, Lisa called me. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. Mark. I leaned back in my chair. Lisa. A pause. I just wanted to talk. I let out a slow breath. About what? She hesitated. I've been struggling. I said nothing. She cleared her throat. I lost my apartment. I'm staying with a friend, but I don't know how long that'll last. I still said nothing. Her voice cracked slightly. I was wondering if we could meet up, just to talk. I let the silence stretch long enough for her to squirm. Then I asked, Lisa, why are you really calling? She exhaled shakily. I miss you. I smiled. Not because I was happy to hear it, but because I had expected it. Lisa had spent our entire marriage believing I would always be there. That no matter what she did, no matter how cruel she was, I would never leave her completely. She was wrong. I kept my voice steady. Lisa, let me ask you something. If I was the one who had cheated, who had embarrassed you in front of your entire company, who had ruined your reputation, would you have taken me back? Silence. I nodded to myself. That's what I thought. I heard her inhale sharply, like she was preparing to argue, but I cut her off before she could. Lisa, you don't miss me. You miss the version of me who tolerated your behavior, the one who stayed quiet, the one who let you walk all over him. But that guy, he doesn't exist anymore. She swallowed hard. Mark, please, I shook my head. You made your bed, Lisa. And for once, I'm not the one cleaning up your mess. I hung up, and just like that, I closed the last remaining door to my past. I had spent years letting Lisa define my worth, convincing myself that I wasn't enough. But standing there, looking out over the city from my office, feeling the weight of her voice finally gone from my life, I knew the truth. I had never been the problem. She was. And now, she was just another mistake I had finally left behind. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like, and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.